So did you know how big the oil and gas industry was in 2022, like dollar-wise? Is it $500 billion, $1 trillion, $2 trillion? What if I told you it's $5 trillion? And what if I told you these people that are in that industry found out about a guy named Stanley Meyer many years ago who built a car that ran on water, and in an interview, he believes it can go coast to coast on 22 gallons of water. And then all of a sudden, according to this documentary, during dinner, he's saying he's getting poisoned and he drops and he dies. And there's a bunch of other guys that had these types of technology but didn't want it to come out. And then you're getting reports from Bloomberg coming out saying the fact that Green Energy Research Team estimates a new report this week that it could cost $196 trillion in investments to reach zero out of the world's carbon emissions by 2050. McKinsey says 275. Another Swiss Re organization says 23 trillion a year. A bunch of these guys are saying $200 to $300 trillion for us to go to net zero. But what if we already have that technology, but just some people don't want the public to know about it because they want you to keep going to the gas station? Because God forbid if we solve that problem, that may get rid of a $5 trillion industry. Is that a fair question to ask? I don't know. But we're going down the rabbit hole again. Okay, so if you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. But you may be watching the same Pat, why should I care about this? Honestly, I got so many other things to care about. Here's why. In 2021, the U.S. spent $1.3 trillion on energy, 5.7% of our gross domestic product, GDP. On a per capita basis, the annual energy cost was $3,967 per person. You. The average American household pays $6,888 in utility bills per year, and Americans spend roughly 3.2% of their budget on gas every year, give or take $2,100. And by the way, this is happening while the average salary in America, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, is roughly a little over $59,000. So that's a lot of money for somebody making $59K a year. So now, remember earlier I told you that Bloomberg said $196 trillion, how much we're going to be spending by 2050. The question may be how? What does that look like? This is what it looks like if you break it down. And by the way, from 22 to 23 to 24 to 25, 26, the biggest jump in annual investment required is this decade. They want to raise investment into this decade. You and I have to pay for it, and that increase will be the blue is electric vehicles, green is low carbon power, grids, hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, heat pumps, sustainable materials, fossil fuel processes, and fossil fuel power. President Biden said himself, the global temperature rising more than 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next 2 decades is scarier than nuclear war. AOC said the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change, and your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And Al Gore, famous Al Gore, he became famous like this. If we don't take action, there could be as many as 1 billion climate refugees crossing international borders in the next several decades. Sounds scary when you read this. Is this fear porn, or are they really concerned about you and I? Who knows? Well, let's take a look. So you may be watching and say, is there a political message here? Are you defending Republicans or not Democrats? Who are you defending in this message? Listen, Republicans are trying to protect oil and gas. Democrats are all about climate change. Both of them are getting money from these guys. They don't want those guys to stop making money because then they're not going to give money. And what if there is a solution to actually get rid of this $4 trillion investment every year and not have to say we need to spend $196 trillion? Where does that money come from? You and I. That's where they get the money from. You're like, I don't have $196 trillion, but they're going to get it from us over the next 30 years. That's what they're trying to do collectively. Not just you. It's not about taxing the rich. The rich can't afford to pay $196 trillion. We don't even have a trillionaire right now. Think about 196 of them to be out there, right? If they tax them at 100%, they're coming after you. They need your money as well. They'll tax you through other places. So what is the solution here? Because when you're dealing with a problem like this, people out there and said, man, I'm stubborn people like this guy. I just want you to watch this guy's interview, by the way, and see what he says. This is an old video, probably from the 80s, if not the 90s. This is Stanley Meyer. Look at his determination, saying, I'm sick of this shit, in his own words. Watch this.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow. If you don't have any snow available to you, they use salt water because there's no adverse effect to the fuel cell.
Meyer started working on this project 4 years ago. He's not a scientist. He isn't even a chemist. In fact, he never graduated from college. Myers was determined, he says, to design something to protect this country from oil embargoes.
And we have calculated that if we take the dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would roughly use 22 gallons of water.
So do you hear his voice, like how much fire he's got? This is not, do you understand it? Like true believers are going to be like, I'm going to fix this problem, right? This is not cool what they're doing. Now watch it, Stanley Meyer, he builds this engine that uses a process called electrolysis to split water into oxygen, hydrogen gas, powering the vehicle. So obviously imagine you're the oil and gas industry. Like, who is this guy? Why are they giving him TV time? Get him off. And this is not social media time. He gets all this publicity and attention. And in 1998, during a celebration with Belgian investors about to close a multi-million-dollar deal, Meyer became violently ill and claimed he was poisoned before dying. Official report stated he died of a brain aneurysm. Now, by the way, this is being said in a documentary filled with many interviews called The Lost Century on Amazon. If somebody says, come on now, this is a such and such, why is Jeff Bezos allowing this to be on his Amazon? Why are they letting that happen? But watch this. That wasn't only invention he had. He had another device that ran on nothing. Yes, you know how much money you can make off of nothing? You can't say, I'll sell you nothing for $5 a gallon. What do you mean? There's no profit margin on nothing, right? He built a device that broke the second law of thermodynamics. Do you and I even know what that means? Broke the second law of thermodynamics. Whatever it is, he was able to figure it out to run on nothing. You can't monetize when you run on nothing, right? Stanley Meyer had a donut-shaped electromagnetic device in his garage, slapped with a national security order due to its groundbreaking nature. Paranoid from past experiences of having patents seized, Meyer deliberately falsified the voltage and frequency numbers in his patent to prevent theft or classification. Skeptics argue that Meyer's technology violated thermodynamics law, specifically the second law of thermodynamics, energy transfers inefficiencies, because Meyer's engine created energy without waste. Now watch this. I'm going to read this to you. It's going to sound very weird, but hang tight. And then I'm going to validate it with a quote that was given by Tesla back in the days. Zero energy devices are said not to create energy, but to channel existing, keyword, omnipresent energy. Challenging conventional views on energy conservation is what we're talking about with Stanley. And you know what Nikola Tesla said? If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. What the hell happened to the Stanley guy? Was he up to something big? And why did he disappear all of a sudden? It's a good question to ask. So now that's 1990. How far back can we go where somebody thought of this? In 1898, this man named Stubblefield was issued the U.S. patent of 600,457 for something called the Earth battery. Earth battery. What is an earth battery? It's an electronic coil of iron, insulated copper wire that was immersed in liquid or buried in the ground. Stubblefield claimed that combined with normal battery operation, his device also drew additional power from the earth. However, it did successfully serve as both a power source and a ground terminal for wireless telephones. This is getting crazier and crazier, right? Like you may be watching this right now saying, I'm going to come up with this idea. There's no money in this idea. You get what I'm saying? Like there is no money. It's just you're solving a massive problem. You're going to create so many enemies. The oil and gas industry employs millions of people. This isn't just about the people that are making the money, but watch this one here. Nikola Tesla's Pierce Aero electric car from 1921 running on pure etheric electricity. What does that mean? This is a self-recharging car. It does not run on batteries, oil, and gas. Again, recharging. How do you keep making money if somebody sells a battery that's recharging? You shave and you use your razor. It gets bad. Boom. You go to whatever store, you buy another one, okay? You put batteries in something. You change, you go back, right? You're constantly having to go back to buy it. There is more money being made. If it's self-recharging car, what do I need to go buy? Because it's already recharging itself. There's no profit in it. And by the way, what's wild is many of these stories were also in the paper. Here's one from August 28th, 1921 in the Phoenix paper. Electricity taken from air drives automobile. Taken from air drives automobile. And by the way, I got a bunch of these stories, but I want to tell you with Tesla. Let's go through what happened with Tesla. So check this out. In 1900, Nikola Tesla convinced JP Morgan to fund a global wireless communication system, later expanding the project to include wireless power transmission after demonstrating the technology. So now JP Morgan's like, well, a great idea. What could this turn into? Then on July 10th, 1920, 1932, this is 32 years later, Tesla announced the development of a principle to harness cosmic rays for power generation. He described a process where cosmic rays ionize the air. Again, going back to the Phoenix guy talking about air. This is in 1921. This is in 1932. So cosmic ray ionizes the air, releasing energy that can be captured and used to operate a motor. The system could provide continuous power without the need for storing energy, unlike other renewable sources such as wind or solar, which we have a lot of solar right now that we need to replace every 30 years, but this is saying no wind, no solar. So now watch this. I'm about to read this next part to you, but in 1900, he convinces JP Morgan, right? 1932, he announces the development of this cosmic harness ray for power generation. Watch this. The new energy source, described as everywhere present in unlimited quantities, could potentially, ready for the powerful word that scared the crap out of everybody, eliminate the need for conventional fuel, such as what? Coal, oil, or gas. Boom. The moment he said this, it scared the hell out of everybody. So now Tesla requested more funding for this expansion, but now JP Morgan withdrew support, citing a breach of contract possibly influenced by its investment in industries threatened by Tesla innovations, GE, AT&T, copper mines. Of course, he's going to sit there and protect his investment, saying, hey, what you're doing, you're going to put my guys out of business. I'm not interested. Allegedly, that's what happened here. Did I just use the word allegedly? I think I did, right? If I used the word allegedly, by the way, we have a new shirt that came out called Allegedly. Valuetainment Future Looks Bright. If you haven't ordered it yet, click on the link below. Go order your Allegedly shirt. Let's get back to the episode. So now watch this. Not only did JP Morgan Chase say, no, we're not going to give you more funding, but what they also did is discourage other investors, isolating Tesla financially. So this led to Tesla having significant debt, which eventually led to the foreclosure and eventual demolition of the Wardenclyffe Tower, which is where he was doing all his testing. Obviously, his vision of free, unlimited energy had a lot of enemies, such as Morgans, Rockefellers, Vanderbilts, who controlled American energy production and distribution. That's a problem. And by the way, according to this documentary, The Lost Century, ready for this? It's kind of weird here. Watch this. Upon his death, many of his documents disappeared, and only 60 of his 80 organized boxes were recovered. FBI documents showed that the Department of Defense ordered Tesla's belongings to be turned over to them after his death. Kind of weird. I'm going to go through the rest of these guys very quick. This is a guy named Charles Pogge in the 30s. He figured out a way to create a machine. Ready for this? Breen Motor Company tested a carburetor on a Ford V8 Coupe in 1936, achieving 26.2 miles on 1 pint of gasoline. Approximately, it would have been 220 miles per gallon. 220 miles, by the way, we're talking in 1936 with Ford. Ford knew about this, and even after Ford and Canadian Automotive Magazine reported around 200 to 218 miles per gallon, excitement from the test resulted to a drop in oil company stock prices on the Toronto Exchange. But following the media buzz, Pogge's workshop was burglarized and all related materials were stolen. Eventually, he ceased further development and the discussion of carburetor, later taking a high-paying managerial position where? At an oil company. Next guy, Thomas Morey, 1940s. This guy invented a device capable of generating 50 kilowatts with no energy input, tapping into the 0-point field. Based on what he did here, Russians tried to kidnap him. After public demonstrations in 1940, his lab was attacked. He faced multiple assassination attempts, and ultimately, his assistant sabotaged his work. Morey died impoverished with his groundbreaking technology lost to secrecy and sabotage. This next one's going to be a little bit weird. You may even pause the video to want to Google this to say, this can be right. In 1951, the U.S. enacted the Invention Secrecy Act. What is that? Allows the government to legally classify and keep certain inventions secret if deemed a threat to national economy or security. What could be a threat to national economy? If you're able to figure something out that's 220 miles per gallon, you think it affects the oil industry a little bit? Maybe. Inventions under a secrecy order cannot be discussed, exported, or sold outside of military channels. Violations of secrecy order can result in imprisonment for the inventor. Over 6,000 patents today are kept by the U.S. government in secret. They didn't allow the people to go out there and sell it. I wonder what those 6,000 patents are. A lot of people want to be like, when you become a president, I want to go to Area 51. A lot of us capitalists want to find out what these 6,000 patents are. If you want to go a little bit deeper, let me give it to you. In 1971, the list indicated that patents for solar photovoltaic generators were subject to review and possible restrictions if they were more than 20% efficient, meaning energy conversion systems were likewise subject to review and possible restriction if they offered conversion efficiencies in excess of 70 to 80%. What does that really mean? That means if we can save your electricity by over 70 to 80%, pump the brakes. 20%, we're okay with that. 70, 80, little too much. We can't save people that much money because if we do that, a couple other industries may be out of business. That's exactly what it means. I'll do a couple of these and we'll wrap up because I got a lot of stories for you. Just go watch a documentary. So Tom Ogle, in the 1970s, Tom Ogle accidentally created an engine that ran on its own fumes using a modified lawnmower. What? In April 1977, he drove the car 205 miles on just 2 gallons of gas. Engineers found no hidden fuel reserves in the car, confirming the technology's effectiveness. Ogle's invention attracted significant attention, including a $25 million buyout. You know from who? Ready for this? From Shell Oil Company, which he declined to prevent the technology from being suppressed. How weird is that? Despite securing a patent and investor support, Ogle faced legal troubles from the SEC and the IRS and personal challenges, including his wife leaving him. Ogle was shot in 1978 but survived. However, later he died under suspicious circumstances involving painkillers and alcohol, which was ruled an accidental overdose. His death was speculated by some to be a cover-up, and his revolutionary invention was largely forgot. This next one, I like his name a lot. I had a friend named Little Sparky, but here we go. Floyd Sweet, Sparky. 1980s, Sparky developed a machine capable of converting 0.3 milliwatts into 224,000 watts of continuous on-demand power without limitations on attached equipment. He filed a patent for his invention soon after a well-dressed man approached Sparky at a grocery store, showing him a photograph taken secretly of him and his wife at home, threatening him to seize his research. Now imagine you're at a market, you're at a gas station, guy comes and shows you this, grocery store. What are you going to be doing? Wait a minute, who are you guys? Can't tell you. Here's you and your wife. What? Yes, you got to stop what you're doing with this Connect app. It's revolutionizing the industry. Cannot do that. This is freaking people out. Just because of a QR code, I can download the app and I can ask other people questions and I can get my question answered now. We can't do that. We can't get people getting answers to the questions now. You can do it, by the way, if you download the app on the Connect QR code right here. Let me get back to the story here with you. So he walked me, he tells Floyd Sweet Sparky, all the way to my building, telling me what would happen to me if I didn't stop my research. Despite reporting the incident to the FBI, harassment intensified. Sparky and his wife received numerous threatening calls. Sparky was getting telephone calls and death threats from strangers. He said there were people calling at all hours. The police put a tap on my line, and over a 6-month period, over 480 calls came in from all parts of the U.S., but they were from pay stations. Thus, the police could never find the callers. His lab was eventually burglarized, resulting in theft of his notes. Later, 2 men visited Sparky's home. Shortly after they left, Sparky collapsed and subsequently died from a perpetrated heart attack after being taken away in an ambulance, which his wife was not allowed to enter. Within 24 hours of his death, the FBI seized all of Sparky's equipment and research. Besides its power generation, Sparky's device, known as the VT, also demonstrated anti-gravity capabilities during experiments with retired Army officers and nuclear physicist Tom Bearden, who observed a 90% reduction in the VTA weight, supporting Bearden's theory of gravity as a pushing force. So final thoughts right now, if you're watching this as a capitalist entrepreneur, somebody who respects a lot of business owners out there. We run a consulting firm called BedDavid Consulting. You can go to beddavid.com to learn. This is my concern here. If you're watching and say, okay, Pat, what should I do with this information? 1, go watch the documentary, The Lost Century, just for yourself to get educated. But 2, everybody becomes president. Like, if you become president, are you willing to release the John F. Kennedy assassination and Area 51 information? And every time a president goes in there, they're like, oh man, I can't do it. Even Trump. If I told you, you wouldn't believe it. If I this, if I that. Obviously the fear is, hey, we're going to kind of compromise our own institutions that we have. But what if you're able to go and look up this 1951, the Invention Secrecy Act, and you encourage the president to not necessarily just do John F. Kennedy assassination or Area 51. What if you ask him, can we get rid of this? What happens if we get rid of this? What are these 6,000 patents we're talking about? I want to know. Don't you want to know? maybe share this video with other people. Go watch the document and start asking politicians, why do we have that in place? Just start asking your congressman, your senator. I just watched this video. I looked at this, maybe tag the Wikipedia, tag the articles, tag it from the US government website. Why do we have this? Why can't we get rid of this? And see what they tell you. Let's get some answers, because I'm curious. I'm sure you're also curious if you're still watching this video. I'd want to get to the bottom of this. If you do as well, go on Twitter and tweet this and see what they tell you, and do some research for yourself. Anyways, if you got value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, there's another video I did that's relatively close to this ESG video. If you've never seen this whole thing on ESG, click here to watch the video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye.